Which country will you never travel to? There's a couple that are not at all popular destinations anyway, like Haiti and North Korea, but Dubai is the one I'd avoid most. It's marketed as a hip and modern place to shop or relax, but it's built largely by slave labor, and if you're not a citizen and run into any kind of problems requiring the police, you can count on getting zero help. My sister was thinking about going there to work for a couple of years a while back, and I pointed out the case of the teenage French boy who had been abducted and raped repeatedly. Despite being able to identify his attackers, the police did nothing, and did not bother to notify the family that one of his rapists had AIDS. I'm grateful that she listened to me and did not go. Same goes for Bahrain in terms of slave labor. Me and my family were forced to work without pay from 2016 to 2019. My dad and my brother and I were tricked into going over to work for a wealthy Arab dude. Me first. Then within a few months they had both come over because we were offered amazing packages. Once there, they visa trapped us. My brother died in 2017 and my dad died in 2019. British Embassy, South African Embassy, Bahraini police, Bahraini labor authorities, 2 newspapers, multiple news branches in my home country and Bahrain. I contacted and told everyone. No one gave a shit. Employer refused to acknowledge when my brother died. And when my dad died, I had to do everything by myself, had to beg to have them cremated there. Such a horrible fucking string of events. I am looking for a lawyer who is able to help me, but so far nothing. A billionaire ruined my family and owes me. It's the story of my life. It's incredibly sad to know that North Korea is legitimately thought of as the nuttiest and craziest country on the planet. I have family originally from there, and so it's heartbreaking to think of that place that is the butt of jokes and practically a meme as a source of true sorrow and heartache for a lot of my family. My father-in-law, for one, was born there before he and his immediate family were forced to escape to the south, leaving behind many of his extended family members. He wants so badly to visit his hometown and to possibly track down his cousins whom he hasn't seen in decades, but he knows that he'll just die without ever setting foot on his native land ever again. It's incredibly sad and heartbreaking. We went there with my wife. We went in Hurghada, which was an amazing place for holidays, a sea-like paradise, luxury hotels and such. But to be honest, this place was a fortress for tourists. Overall, we won't go back to Egypt. Cairo was crap. We visited the pyramids. Street vendors were very aggressive. My wife and me are Arabic, so we managed to get them away by being very firm towards them, but they were a plague everywhere we went. We also felt the oppressive regime. It's hard to explain. I felt there were some topics there that you wouldn't talk about. Soldiers everywhere. Helicopters and all. People drive like morons, stuck against each other. They will honk constantly, for no reason, even when the road is clear. I would recommend Morocco instead. There was a Canadian man who was seized and arbitrarily charged with a bombing. I think it was. No evidence, no hearing, just tossed into a torture center and hung by feet, naked, and beaten for days on end. For variety, he was anally raped. They demanded he sign a confession and he did. Anything to make it stop. Then they would decide the wording should change and resume torturing him, not because he refused to sign but because they felt like it. He had 2 heart attacks in the process. The entire tale was told on a TV interview, and it was both sickening and infuriating. Travel to Egypt, not on your life. Oh God. One of my friends has a sister that had some big trip planned in Egypt. She'd been saving and planning for years. Her and a couple of her friends were going. The thing is, this trip of theirs just so happened to coincide with the Arab Spring uprising. I heard his conversation with her when she told him she was going, and she had no fucking idea what the Arab Spring even was, or that Egypt was the latest hotbed. Her friends all dropped out, but she was stubborn and went by herself. Luckily nothing happened to her, but she basically couldn't leave her hotel the whole time. Lesson learned: when you go to a foreign country, try to at least learn the first fucking thing about them before you go. Robert Evans talked about this cool thing in the Middle East on his podcast Behind the Bastards. He frequently visits there and mentions some areas have had this huge feminist uprising. All the men went off to fight so women had to handle shit and now they're fighting to keep their newfound freedom. It's kinda sad that they need to fight for it but also really fucking badass too. Shit seems like it might be going in the right direction for women in general there. That being said, LGBTQ+ is a number, but one step at a time. It'd be nice to be able to scale the entire mountain in a single leap, but people are stuck taking it step by careful step. Whatever source you got that information from has severely misinterpreted the laws associated with conscription. There are a bunch of rules that absolutely have to be followed. To be conscripted you need to be a Russian citizen. No foreign citizen can join the armed forces through conscription or contract. Be registered on a conscription list. This requires you to have a Russian passport with the registry of place of residence within the Russian Federation. Reside permanently inside of the Russian Federation. Different from 2. Since some people have passports with an old place of residence in Russia while permanently living abroad. Be between 18 and 27 years old. Be in the country during a conscription time, spring 01.04 15.07 or autumn 01.10 Have no disqualifying medical conditions. Basically, if you travel with U.S. passport no one should bother you with anything army related. Also the whole concept of conscripting one is effectively a random foreign national against his will, then arming him and sending him into a combat zone, where you want professionalism and loyalty seems counterproductive for any military. Don't you think? Smile. The officers of such a theoretical unit would have to spend 110% of their time catching all the deserters like some kind of hardcore version of Pokemon. I remember going to Syria just before the war started. I was 7 years old. It was so beautiful and the people were so nice and friendly. We stayed in the apartment my grandpa has there and visited family friends. My mom always tells me since she was little her family would go to Syria for the summer holidays and stay in my grandpa's apartment, and when the weather becomes too hot they go north and stay with their friends. She misses it so much and wishes she could go there again someday. Also my grandpa's apartment is now a location for government agents to stay, so we can't even give it for family friends to stay in. I was looking for this Bolivian here. Whenever I advise people on touring to South America I always say the important part is to pick the right city. Apart from the salt flat, Bolivia isn't very popular, so no one knows where to go. We don't have much excitement for conventional tourists after all, but it's not as bad the rep it gets. We have developed cities like Santa Cruz, my hometown, that still have the countryside charm just a 1-hour drive away. And the best part, the food. I've been living in the US for 2 years and the thing I miss the most is the food. You gotta be a meat lover to enjoy it though. That being said, you should still be careful. South America isn't very tight in public safety. That isn't to say you get kidnapped in the streets of Santa Cruz. Criminals likely don't have the budget for it, but our cops are not very dedicated, so just keep an eye out and you will be good. In the 19 years I lived there, I never once had an encounter with any shady business. So do your research, pick the right city and person to show you around and you will be fine. Smile. I have nothing against the Chinese, their culture or their history. In fact, Chinese history and culture interests me immensely, but the country scares the shit out of me. The genocide, the social credit system, the passive-aggressive foreign policy, the WHO that doesn't dare call Taiwan a country, its exportation of cancerous goods to the EU bypassing normal regulation, falsifying this logo to practically the same logo in the whole Hong Kong drama. The entire country scares me. If there is ever World War III, China is at the core of it. I will not, ever, travel to a country that actively murders an entire people and oppresses its own. I hate China with a burning passion and I hope that its population will rise up in the near future. I'm Armenian, so by default, I have two. First, Azerbaijan. They have a bit of a nasty tendency of beheading us in the streets, or launching full-scale pogroms against us while chanting death to Armenians in the streets, and also starting full-scale wars over lands we have inhabited for centuries that were illegally given away by another country, Russia, to them and then building parks with racist caricatures of Armenians celebrating our deaths. Not to mention, that aside, they literally have some of the lowest ratings for freedom and safety. You can be imprisoned on false charges and rot in there, and the government is a horrific totalitarian dictatorship. Second, Turkey. For obvious reasons, rampant, systemic anti-Armenian sentiment, racially motivated attacks against Armenians, denial of the Armenian genocide, which they committed, and generally being extremely hostile toward Armenians literally all the time. Plus they're extremely predatory and violent toward women. There's major anti-American sentiment as well, and Erdogan is a danger to society. Oh, in Cyprus, because Turkey has illegally occupied Cyprus since 1974. I've been to a lot of predominantly non-English speaking countries and I have a lot of anxiety. In my experience, if you are in the cities, tourist areas, there are enough English-speaking people that the language barrier is honestly one of the lower barriers to entry. Yes, no and thank you, and knowing the emergency number is 99% of what you need really. The real crux move of travel is not language but being able to decipher metro maps/bus schedules/train timetables in other languages enough to navigate successfully. Airport. Greater than hotel is the worst part, but after that the hotel staff will generally help you orient yourself if you need it. Edit. Except China. Not sure how to get around China without a lot of Mandarin, but I'm sure people have done it. England. I went to Bristol and my god, it's difficult to even retell what happened to me there. I went to a McDonald's in the middle of the day. People all around, I didn't have a care in the world. Ordered a large cheeseburger meal and 12 McNuggets. The server, his name was Desmond, hands me my me with this real smug look on his face. He's all like, enjoy your meal, and I just know something's up. Like, you know how, as a woman, you just get the sixth sense for sick fucks? Well, Desmond was one sick fuck. I sit down at my table, go to eat my McNuggets and realize that something is not quite right. The nuggets look okay at first glance, but upon closer inspection, there were only 11 of them. I'd ordered 12. Goddammit. My skinny husband was trying to hold me back, saying things like just speak to them quietly and calmly ask for another nugget and it's just one nugget. I'll buy you some more, and seriously, don't get us deported from another country. Please don't repeat the episode on our honeymoon. But unfortunately for my husband, it's difficult to hold back 260 pounds of hungry, all-American woman, especially when that woman knows her rights and is not afraid to fight for them. So I storm up to the counter and I tried to jump it, but I wasn't athletic enough, so I fell on my back and couldn't get up. Anyway, that fucking sleazebag Desmond leans over the counter, looks at me and has the audacity to say, "Are you okay? Can I get you some help?" Help? Question mark. Fucking help. You could have given me my correct order of McNuggets is what you could have fucking given me, Desmond. My hubby helps me up and I come up with a genius plan. I stop swearing, catch my breath and calmly order a large Coke. Desmond pours my cum, hands it to me with that stupid, bewildered, kinda scared look on his face and blammo. I throw the Coke all over his goddamn stupid face. Give me my fucking nuggets, Desmond, I scream. Anyway, my husband and the manager intervened when I tried to tackle Desmond, and then the British police have me a warning and ask me to stop tackling people. So yeah, I'll never go back to England again, and I suggest that none of you do either. TLDR, fuck Bristol, fuck England and fuck Desmond. I would say North Korea. I might consider traveling to it, but I would never really want to go there. The dress code and everything are pretty stressful. For example, you could get sent to a labor camp for wearing blue jeans, because it promotes America, or for wearing the wrong colors. Besides, it's annoying how you can't actually travel wherever you want in the country, but only led by a tour guide to see what the government wants you to see, and not the poverty state that the country is in. Also, I would not want to get sent to a Gillick with my entire family for saying something bad about the country, its government, or the leader, Kim Jong-un. There are even standards for the pictures that you take. Before entering the country, all of your devices get checked. Your phone, laptop, anything. That includes the photos you have, your apps, your messages, and they do a background check on you to see if you have previously said anything unappealing about their country, or if your country and North Korea are in good terms. When leaving the country, they run another check through your bags, suitcases, and devices. At your hotel, oftentimes there will be many power outages, and there is no Wi-Fi. If you want to use computers, you must go to an internet cafe where your activity is closely monitored. The computers there have multiple sites blocked, and the only sites are promotional ones, promoting the country, or something propaganda-related. India. Beautiful nature, temples and religion, but way too many people there. Everything is dirty, broken. Government does not doing anything for the poor, and its people are not helping either, throwing their trash on the floor. I would not visit any big city anyways. Human rights are also horrible. Arabic countries. I love the Arabic authentic way of living and religion, its culture, but they just don't like us. Such a shame what happened the last 3 decades, because from origin Arabic and Muslim people are very nice folk. France cities I don't like the French chauvinism, and the way they treat tourists if they don't speak their language. They also like to put poor folk from different nationalities in hoods. They just don't care about foreigners period. Been there twice, and I know enough. Any country that has not been enlightened, especially China for obvious reasons, although there is no consensus about the exact span of time that corresponds to the American Enlightenment. It is safe to say that it occurred during the 18th century among thinkers in British North America and the early United States and was inspired by the ideas of the British and French Enlightenments, based on the metaphor of bringing light to the Dark Age, the Age of the Enlightenment, Siècle des Lumières in French and Aufklärung in German, shifted allegiances away from absolute authority, whether religious or political, to more skeptical and optimistic attitudes about human nature, religion and politics. In the American context, thinkers such as Thomas Paine, James Madison, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams and Benjamin Franklin invented and adopted revolutionary ideas about scientific rationality, religious toleration and experimental political organization. Ideas that would have far-reaching effects on the development of the fledgling nation. Some coupled science and religion in the notion of deism, others asserted the natural rights of man in the anti-authoritarian doctrine of liberalism, and still others touted the importance of cultivating virtue, enlightened leadership and community in early forms of Republican thinking. At least 6 ideas came to punctuate American Enlightenment thinking: deism, liberalism, republicanism, conservatism, toleration and scientific progress. Many of these were shared with European Enlightenment thinkers, but in some instances took a uniquely American form. Germany. Stopped in a connecting flight from Italy to the USA and I was randomly selected for a security check 5 minutes before my plane was about to take off. They searched me, asked me to strip down, to which I refused, and tried to open my iPad to see if there was a bomb, to which I protested. I asked why I was selected and they said I seemed suspicious. For context, I'm Argentinian but I have Arabic genes that definitely comes through when I fully grow out my beard, which was the case at this time, and I was the only mixed-race person around. After finding nothing they told me I better run to my plane, to which I said fuck you, and I walked there calmly holding up the entire plane. Some guy on the plane told me that you better run shit is a tactic to get me randomly selected again. So yeah, I shaved because 1, fuck beard maintenance, and 2, been racially profiled a number of times upon growing it out. The obvious, big human rights violations and safety concern ones aside, probably Serbia. I'm technically Serbian, by blood anyway, and frequently had to visit family there. Things are just kinda fucked, from how children and dogs are treated. Personally experienced people putting out poison on the street and tossing stray puppies over great heights with no remorse. Commenter how most foods from the store taste, and then the hygiene problems. I'm sure not everyone's like this, but I've just been surrounded by way too many people not bothered by insects and flies going on, and in food, being inside homes, etc. Even in restaurants, everything is kind of antiquated and feels like going back into the 80s, like putting a filter over life. which goes both for rural areas to even the capital city. I also really hate the music, not gonna lie. It's not the most obvious answer, but I only had bad experiences there, and growing up in a different country, I personally can't feel comfortable there. Especially the whole and sex around food situation makes me feel ill, and memories of my hoarder extended family probably explain my neurotic need for order and cleanliness.